Are you ready to accelerate the growth of your business? Welcome to the Revenue Growth Podcast. This is the place for business owners, sales leaders, and marketing professionals to get ideas and inspiration to drive exponential revenue growth. Each week, you'll get actionable insights from the world's leading marketing and sales thought leaders and practitioners. Are you ready to grow? Let's join our host, Joel Stevenson, author of Revenue Growth Engine.
Welcome back to the Revenue Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Joel Stevenson, trailblazer and growth architect. Today, we're going to learn about new ways to leverage technology to boost sales productivity while also improving client interactions. This is going to be a fantastic conversation with Joel Stevenson. He's the CEO of Yesware. By the way, if you have a sales team and you want to boost results, you need to get to know selling from the heart. What's great about the selling from the heart approach is how it takes a different approach to driving sales. The goal is to build trust quickly with clients and prospects through authenticity. The result? More effective prospecting, higher close rates, and more referrals. Best of all, the selling from the heart methodology works with your existing sales model. To learn more, visit www.sellingfromtheheart.net and make sure to listen to me and my co-host Larry Levine each week on the Selling from the Heart podcast. Well, right now it's critical that we enable our sales teams to be productive. At the same time, reps need to be able to have consistent interactions with prospects and clients that are both authentic and personalized. So to help us with this, we're going to talk with Joel Stevenson. He's the CEO of Yesware, a leader in sales productivity software. He's an expert in helping businesses become more efficient and productive in the way they interact with their clients. Over the years, you'll find that Joe has developed a keen understanding of how technology can be used to improve productivity in vastly different environments and business types. We're going to have a great conversation today. Joel, welcome to the Revenue Growth Podcast. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, great to be here, and love the focus on authenticity. We're big believers in that driving results. So it's great to be on the show.
Well, it's great to have you here as well, and I think that really sets up a lot of this conversation, which is, we've got a little bit of a tension here. We've got to drive sales productivity, and we also realize that in the environment that we're in right now, trust is paramount. It always has been, but it's a challenge. And I know one of the things that has been along that spectrum a bit of a tension is there's a thought that when we get technology involved that we start to lose some of the authenticity now, right? It becomes automated. And talk to us a little bit about how you're seeing people overcome this challenge, because, by the way, I want to set this up correctly. One of the cool things that I love about what you and your team are doing at Yesware is you guys are managing a data set of literally billions of interactions with clients.
Yeah, we see a lot from our vantage point, from everything from opens to replies to, attachment opens, campaign usage. And some of that we put in a report we can talk about in a bit. But yeah, we are fortunate to have a very rich data set here at Yesware.
So I think that gives that, I just want to bring that into the forefront, because as you're listening into this, we're talking here not just about theory, or we're not just talking about some nice ideas. We're talking about some data-backed ideas based on just an incredible data set of interactions. So let's go back to this conversation about automation and authenticity. Those two seem diametrically opposed sometimes. How do you enable sales productivity without them getting lost in the robotic automation buckets?
Right. Well, I think you where you want to start is with the easy wins. And so if there are things that you keep doing manually, like syncing information to Salesforce or rewriting the same thing all the time, like there are some quick wins around, getting tools that can sync that information automatically, have templates, have series of communications set up where you're not spending time doing activities that are just as well done with a machine. I
Mhm.
would sort of say like that's step one. At least like try to get those wins. Then once you've got those wins, then it starts to become a little bit of a question about how you want to grow, in how authentic or how bespoke, do you want your process to be?
Mhm.
And there are there's a couple of schools of thought here. One school of thought is, well, more volume is better, and the way that you would get more and more volume is you would drive more and more automation into your tool. And there are plenty of tools out there that can drive really remarkable levels of automation. The challenge that I generally see with that approach is that everybody is now, maybe 7 years ago, people were less accustomed to receiving, automated email messages from a rep. People were very used to getting those from marketers, but maybe not
Mhm.
so much from sales reps. And so, like, your ability to still seem human was a little bit better than it is right now. And I feel like now, everybody's gotten, particularly any executive at a company of any scale, has gotten so many of these
Mhm.
over the years that as soon as there's a tip off that it's not really a human behind the keyboard typing an email, I think you have a very high chance of being put in the spam folder if you didn't land there to begin with. And
Mhm.
so there's a promise and a peril of automation where, like, smart automation makes all the sense in the world, but if you take it too far, you can burn bridges. And one of the things that we try to caution people about, and it's very difficult to prove, this is more just my assertion than I have data to support this. But when you send out tons and tons of emails and you get some responses, there's a positive that comes back, like an affirmative
Mhm.
thing that says, okay, something good happened. I mean, it could be somebody telling you, like, never email me again or take me off your list.
Right.
But let's assume for a minute you get some positive responses back.
Some
You've
level
done
of attention.
Yeah, you've done some good copywriting or something
Right.
like that. But it's really hard to measure all the people that silently curse you, or the damage done to your brand by sort of
Yeah.
being known as like moronic spammers. And so what you sometimes see, if you watch certain companies over long periods of time, sometimes you get new leadership in, and the new leadership is like the high volume, high automation leadership, and that works for like 9 months,
Right.
and then it starts to implode. But like by the time it starts to implode, the leadership's all right, well, it's starting to implode, let's go do it at the next place. And so you could have a resume that says, like, grew sales, grew revenue by X%, but when you're constantly not there to sort of then deal with the aftermath of that,
Mhm.
it's a little bit of an easier story. But again, these things are difficult to prove. It's more of like what you believe about the market. But we tend to think that, especially these days, as the countermeasures are getting better, that it really pays to invest in a set of communications that you'd be proud to send.
Mhm. I like that a lot. By the way, for context as well, can you give us a quick flyover of Yesware and what you do and the vision behind the company?
Yeah, Yesware is a sales productivity tool, sometimes referred to as sales engagement. We integrate deeply inside of your inbox, either Gmail or Outlook, and we help you save time by automating the rote tasks that we talked about earlier. And then we start to help you understand a better picture of how you're engaging with your customers, whether that's who's engaging with your email content, which content's working better than others, which series of communications are working better than others, and then from that you can start to build a scalable, repeatable process, hopefully in your outbound communications.
Well, and this is what I like about this. If for those sales leaders who are listening in that are in either camp, one is like automate, 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 and the other is like we're not automating anything. That's not
Mhm.
authentic. If you come to the center of this and you look at this, there's some real benefits here in terms of understanding what types of communications are actually resonating with clients. And one of the things as sales professionals, we come in to a new company. We're trying to learn a new product. We're trying to learn a new company. We've got a new set of clients and prospects, and for new salespeople, it's really hard to know what to say. And I see a lot of tremendous value in being able to look at, okay, well, what messages are resonating with our clients, and how can we put that framework in front of our new salespeople coming on board so they can get up to speed very quickly. It seems like that's a tremendous benefit to an organization.
Yes, exactly. Everyone not having to invent the wheel over and over again. And that,
Mhm.
that can manifest in bigger organizations that maybe have some sales enablement or rev ops that can sort of look across the team and figure out what's working and then start to share that in a more systematic way. But a lot of teams that are smaller don't have the benefit of sales enablement or a big sales ops team that can help them manage some of that stuff. And so the ability for a peer to learn to learn from a peer is another important way in which information can get shared inside of a sales team.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point, because if you think about the smaller organization where the founder is trying to remove the sales hat. And I mean, I've had this conversation in the last week with a founder saying, "Hey, I need to get another rep up to speed." Well, what better way to do that than to begin to be able to coach them on how to craft email messages and content through a tool that's in front of them. And I think that that right there is a really powerful application of this type of technology, even inside a small organization that might not think, oh, we're too small for that. Maybe this is actually a good path for those founders who want to take the sales hat off to actually do it and have their reps be effective.
Yeah, that's right. We do have a lot of sort of solopreneurs or CEOs of small companies that are the de facto salesperson that use Yesware because we tend to be pretty easy to get up and running without a lot of
Mhm.
overhead. And yeah, there's this progression that sometimes gets talked about in early stage companies where you start with whiteboard selling, and then you move from whiteboard selling to PowerPoint selling, then eventually you sort of move to PDF selling, and
Mhm.
that initial transition where someone or even sort of the first kind of missionary type salesperson that comes in, they figure out, typically a lot of the ways that this will work, like what messages are going to
Yeah.
work, like who do we talk to? And then to the extent that that can be passed on, with some, sort of digital artifacts and a tool where you can do something about it versus sort of, in written notes or a conversation that can speed time to productivity for the next person.
I like that a lot. Another interesting thing about this, and once again, we're speaking to sales leaders, some who are on the authenticity side, going, "Let my reps do whatever they want." Hey, that's going to get you an inconsistent message, and other that are on the total automation side is probably going to get you a robotic message. But if you can live in the middle, I think another real benefit to this is thinking about the way that buyers needs by the outcomes they want are evolving, and thus the way your message needs to evolve. I'm a firm believer, and we talk about in Revenue Growth Engine, that buyers don't buy products, they buy the outcomes the products and services enable, and those outcomes are changing, right? We had a pre-pandemic, we had a pandemic, now we got supply chain issues, pricing issues, and if you're listening to this someday in the future, who knows what's going on right now. And the reality is, we've got to be able to quickly coach our salespeople through shifting the message and the conversation so that they're relevant. I'm curious how you're seeing organizations leverage technology like Yesware to shift those sales conversations to adapt to the marketplace.
Yeah, well, I mean, a huge shift that you're seeing not only from the market is how we can sell, right? And so, like
Mhm.
the last time I saw a study like this published might have been 5 or 6 years ago, but at the time, the study suggested that there were 6 million non-retail salespeople in the U.S., and of the 6 million, about half were focused on inside selling, and about half were focused on outside selling. Well, I'm pretty sure they're all focused on inside selling now, and remote selling. And
Mhm.
our view is that it's probably for most industries not going back to the way it was, because even if the reps want to get out and travel and do whatever, I think the buyers have figured out that we can actually get a lot done remotely, and it's a better use of the buyer's time in many
Mhm.
cases to drive a remote selling process. And so one of the things that we've seen emerging in the pandemic is a lot of people that are having to figure out how to run a digital or remote first sales process, maybe for the first time in their
Mhm.
career.
Yeah.
And it's not like you can't show up to somebody's office anymore, or you maybe can't even get them on the phone, and so you need a tool like email in many cases to open up a conversation. And so there's some amount of training that has to be done about, okay, well, okay, now I understand that I've got to, maybe do a little bit more volume than I'm accustomed to. And as you said, like I need to also customize these things and make it relevant to my buying audience. So how do I use these tools? And then how do I understand the information that's coming back from the tools? So you get a lot of questions about like, well, when is an email open? And like, what does this mean? Or what does that mean? So there's a good amount of, I feel like, of, people just coming into technology like this for the first time, even though it's been around for a number of years now. And then I think from the buying side, a couple of things. One is on the phone side, I think one thing that's really different is, I remember when I first started my sales career, like I used to call into the switchboard and, you'd figure, there was a game about like figuring out the person's extension and then figuring out the way to bypass the operator. There were all these, books written about like, how do you get past the gatekeeper and get to the person's phone?
Yeah.
Or the old thing about, listen to when the person changes their out of office in the morning, because that's when they get in the office. So you call them at 6. There were all these tricks, and I feel like when you're on a desk phone, you didn't have a lot of defenses. You might have a caller ID that comes through, but if your desk phone is ringing, there's a decent chance you're probably going to pick it up. But now with cell phones, like the countermeasures are much better, right? So it's like, I think about my own cell phone. It's like, I've got good caller ID. I've got, spam detection. I've got all these things that have sort of been crowdsourced. And then if I'm still not sure, I put the person through the Google Assistant, and now they're talking to a robot, and I'm listening, I'm watching the transcript go by, and like maybe so I and then if you do a bad job with that, then maybe I might label you as spam.
Right.
I try not to. We're in that business too, but so I feel like the particularly on the phone side, it's a lot more difficult to do cold outreach on the phone than it ever was. And then on the email side, you've got to sort of deal with the fact that now email volumes are going up. People are maybe tethered to their desk all day, so you got a better chance of hitting the inbox. But also, tools like Google are filtering more and more stuff out of the inbox, and so you've got to figure out, how can you ensure that the message that you're going to write is going to land in the inbox, and then when it does land, you've got probably one shot at the person, so better be good.
Yeah. This is, it's interesting because it feels like the screws are being turned down on all of these areas of communication. And I think that's why being analytical about what's working is really important for companies right now, rather than just hoping that your sales team is coming up with some type of cadence, if they're doing a cadence at all, right?
Yep.
Which,
right.
they're not interested. Having a cadence and having software that enables that cadence and measures it is critical. I love how you put together the sales engagement data trends report. And we talked earlier about how you literally have billions of interactions. So if anyone knows what's working and what's not, when you've got that set of data, it's extremely helpful to know what's working. So I'm curious, as you look at the trends and you look at the reports, what are some things that jump out to you in terms of what's working and what's not, and how we should be thinking about business development in 2022?
Yeah, for this particular report, we actually took a look at some of our highest growth customers that we know from sort of external benchmarks and metrics. So these are, it's not only the whole Yesware customer base; it's like the ones that we know are sort of killing it
Cool.
out in the
I love
market
it.
right now. And I mean, one of the things that I think maybe might surprise people is that one of the things we talk about in the report is sort of like the best cadence based on reply rate, and that actually extends out 14 days. I think some people have a point of view that maybe it should all be within like a very short thing, or should be or some also says like drip it sort of forever. But this data suggests that sort of the middle, what I regard as a middle approach, and that would be 6 touches over 14 days across a couple of different channels is the one that seems to be emerging. Now these things can change quickly, just like subject lines and all. Right. It's a dynamic. You're sort of competing in a dynamic market, not only with what you're trying to do to cut through. But then as others copy tactics that are working, you then maybe have to change your tactics again. So
Right.
these things can change quickly, but this is what tends to be working right now on average for the high performing teams that we studied.
Yeah, that's good to know. And I mean, this is, by the way, if you want to get a copy of this report, we'll put it in the show notes because I think it's really, really fascinating. It's got a lot of granular data that is helpful for anybody thinking about how to construct their prospecting sequence, cadence, and all of that. And I thought it was interesting that you studied, you looked at actually sales teams collaborating with each other in this, and the effect of collaboration was really, really surprising when I read this report.
Yeah, it's maybe one of those things that we all understand intuitively to be true at some level, but yeah, we sort of put people in different buckets about the degree to which they collaborated, and we were finding, 2 to 3 times, multipliers on sort of the highest level of sharing versus the lowest level of sharing. And I think what sales is often thought of as a zero-sum game, in the sense that, a rep might say, well, like if everybody starts killing it, then the quotas are going to go up, then we're going to have to do more work. And I think that's maybe a little more of an older school approach. And what I tend to find is that younger salespeople tend to have much more of like an esprit de corps, like let's all figure this out together and let's make this company super successful. And in the tech space, there's, you got equity and, you got the ability to benefit from, from an exit event. So we tend to see, I think, some of the younger teams actually, I think, operating a more healthy way as it relates to teamwork. But if one person figures out that, okay, when we go from the demo meeting or from the discovery meeting to the demo meeting, that actually when you send this white paper to the person, we've got a much better chance of getting them into the demo meeting. Then once that gets shared, now everybody in your team is immediately more productive, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's where you start to get some unlocks and some of the things that you can really start to build a repeatable, scalable motion against.
That's really, really cool. You also study, I mean, it's down, this report's fascinating, and anybody that is involved in prospecting, and I think all the marketing people that are listening in are going to find this interesting as well. Based on our data, the best time to send an email is 1 p.m. 1 p.m., right? Who'd have thought? And, the second best is 11 a.m. And I think that's really fascinating, just starting to think strategically about not just when we call, but also when we send messages.
Yeah, that's right. And again, this is the sort of thing that can move because as people start to find things at work and the word gets out about it, then everybody starts sending emails at 1 p.m. and then now you got to move to
right.
You got to move to some other
12:59.
Right.
Right.
But at some level there is some logic in it, in the sense that particularly in a COVID world, a lot of people are going to have some breaks during lunchtime, and they're because there's going to be some amount of meetings or some amount of people that are not going to want to schedule meetings over lunch, but you're sort of sitting there at your desk, eating your sandwich or something, and you're kind of scrolling through emails and looking through, and you've got a little bit of maybe just a little bit more of a window of free time there than you might during the morning when you're trying to catch up on all the stuff from the day before, and you might be scanning emails but perhaps not replying. Or then at the end of the day, where like you're trying to wind things down and be done with work, or maybe there's a few fires that are burning inside your company that are more important than replying to this person that you've never heard of before.
Yeah, I think that all of that, it continues to make the case for productivity software and some level of automation, because if you're a sales rep and you're just banging emails out on through your email client, whatever you use, you're going to send it whenever. But if you've got some level of automation and a sequence queued up, you can say, hey, send this at a optimal time. And I also love, so this is my friend Larry Levine's gonna be really happy about this, because he is a firm believer that Saturday is the best prospecting day. And Saturday is the best weekend day to send meeting invites. There you go, folks. But I think this is once again another benefit of automation, because you don't necessarily always need to send everything at 9 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Exactly right. And this may be another thing that perhaps this was always true, but as lines are blurred between work and home and COVID times,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people might, like Saturday morning, there's less other emails coming in, but I'm still scanning my work inbox because I'm sitting in front of my desk.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's
there's definitely
so
some things
cool.
changing.
Well, this is a great report. We'll put it in the link, sales engagement data trends for sales managers to know going into 2022. As we wrap up, I just want to put the crystal ball out there a little bit. What are you seeing in terms of future trends for sales productivity, technology, and sales enablement?
Yeah, so I guess we have a belief that, and we're part of this is based on the fact that we are sort of a product-led growth company ourselves, where we're pretty big believers in building inbound content, just like this report. We're big
Hmm.
believers in the product sort of selling itself, and so we've got a free tier. We actually just reintroduced in November a free tier of Yesware again, so you get a bunch of functionality without ever having to pay for it, and we think that, while, prospecting is always going to be a part of selling, the days of getting really good results from super high volume prospecting, we think are like the diminishing returns are starting to set in on those strategies.
Hmm.
And when we think about, the way a salesperson would go from meeting 0 to meeting 1, maybe looking a little bit more like a marketing motion, where I've got 1,000 people in sort of this version of how I do things, and I've got another 1,000 over here in this other version. I find the one that wins, and I do that until I find another thing that competes. But the variation um, within those processes isn't that different, even if you're customizing every single message to really land with a particular prospects. Like there's a relatively narrow set of variability there in
Hmm.
terms of the approach. However, once you get that first meeting, and now you're trying to take somebody from, let me understand your company and what your issues are and how my company's products can help solve what your business challenges are. Now you sort of throw out the script, if you will, where some
Hmm.
things move in a straight line, but as we know from selling, many things don't. And you go on side quests and you get derailed, and the new person shows up at the org, and so
Hmm.
all of these things are sort of happening. And so we're increasingly trying to focus the product on making sure that you can prospect with the tool, but where we really shine is when you get that that precious lead, that you can take that from from lead all the way through to closed one. And kind of think about this idea of, like, let's not have any unforced errors in the selling process. So, like,
Right,
not
right.
following up with somebody, that's an unforced error. Like not sending good not having sort of a good professionally formatted email, like that's an unforced error. And so if we can help people with the follow-up and the right set of things to do at the right time with the right set of people, we think that would be a great help to a lot of reps. So that's where we're trying to take things.
Absolutely love it. What a great conversation. And Joel, I just want to say a huge thank you for not only investing with our audience here today, and I know everyone's going to want to get a copy of that special report, but I just want to say thank you as well for being generous to share this data with the whole world and coaching all of us on how to be more excellent. I think that is awesome. And best wishes to all the things that are going on at Yesware. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And sales is hard, but it's very important for the spread of ideas and sort of the functioning of the economy. So happy to give back.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, what an incredible conversation today. And I think right now, what I want to challenge everybody to do is take what you learned today. This might be an episode you want to go back and rewind and take a few notes, because I believe that there are some things that all of us can apply to make our sales teams more effective. The other thing I wanted to say as well is I believe that marketing people, we talked about collaboration. It's great for salespeople to collaborate together, but with this type of tool in place as well, let's get the marketing people and salespeople in the room together, discussing what's working in terms of the message, and let's collaborate to succeed. Once again, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for everybody who's leaving reviews. If you're not subscribed to the Revenue Growth Podcast, please hit subscribe. share this podcast with your friends and colleagues, especially those in revenue generating positions. We've got a fantastic lineup of guests coming up throughout the winter and spring. So I look forward to sharing more and more ideas all around driving and accelerating revenue growth. So I want to encourage everybody out there. I know that it's in some industries, in some parts of the world, it's really challenging. As we said all last year, let's get going and let's get growing.